All right, today we have a great episode. We have a special guest. His name is Brandon Jackson. He is the founder of Jackson Law P.C., and we're going to ask him everything you would like to ask a lawyer. All right, welcome back to This Ain't Sunday Morning, where we talk about life after the benediction. My name is Courtney.
I'm Tanisha.
I'm attorney Brandon Jackson.
Period. And my name is Paige.
We are the young adult leadership team of Westside NBC in St. Louis, Missouri, where our aim is to reach the city for God. Shout out to our senior pastor, Charles H.N. Bobo Sr. We affectionately call him PC. Check our show notes for service times.
I like that.
He said attorney. Put some respect on his name.
On his name.
Yeah.
Love it.
Alrighty, so this first segment that we are kicking it off is asking for a friend. But today we are doing a twist on asking for a friend. So my first question is, do you commit crimes? Are y'all criminals?
What? You just gonna jump in there like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that. Do y'all commit crimes?
I need some
You
more
complete the
context
fifth.
around this.
Okay.
I need some
All right.
context.
So, hear me out just for 2.5 seconds. So, Listverse published an article, 10 crimes that you can commit without knowing it. It claims that the average person unknowingly breaks 3 federal laws every day. So that means that some of us on this stage are criminals. So, 1 in 3 Americans have a police record. So I'm going to read a list of crimes, and if you are innocent, let us know. And if you have done it, plead the fifth. Don't say nothing. Don't put your business out there like that. So the first crime, catfishing or burner accounts. Dun, dun, dun. Or fake social media accounts.
Negative. I barely use my real one, so no. Not
Ooh.
guilty.
Courtney is quiet, so
Nope, I haven't done that.
have you done it, Brandon? Have you
Not
done
guilty.
it? Okay. Y'all want to know something? I have done a
You
fake.
plead the fifth. You plead the fifth.
I'm going to put it out there. I have done a fake social media account, but I was a kid. I was like in middle school.
Okay.
And I was trying to get this boy's attention, and I created a fake one just so I can talk to him. But now he in my DMs because I look good now, so, you know. But that was in my past life. I was a kid. So
Amen.
and I didn't know that it was a crime. So with that, this article says that that is identity theft. It is also stated that another common social media offense is copyright. If you post a picture, a drawing, a painting, or a song already claimed by another entity as an intellectual property without the owner's permission, it is illegal.
That I knew.
Yep, I
That-
knew
Right.
that. I knew that part.
Alrighty, so the next crime is a noisy neighbor. Being loud at night is an offense. Are y'all loud at night?
Unless I'm snoring that loud. No.
Oh,
Because
Lord.
I'm in the bed at night, so I don't.
I'm old and boring.
Right,
so
exactly.
No.
Right,
No,
yeah,
I'm
no.
quiet.
I don't even like the noise like that.
Right.
But, you know, if you are a noisy neighbor, that is a crime. The next one, snowball fights. It says it is illegal to throw a snowball with the intent of hitting someone. It's assault. I ain't never
That
done
didn't
that.
change my whole life, my whole childhood. Like,
No, I ain't never done that before.
you never threw a
Wow.
snowball?
No, because I don't like the code.
With the intention
I'm in the house.
to assault.
That's
we did
assault.
that as kids.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm definitely guilty of throwing a
Oh,
snowball.
I might
Wow.
be guilty of it
Yeah.
again coming up. Let us know
Wow,
Yeah,
the
I
did that.
attorney.
I did that.
Yeah,
come
definitely.
get me.
There you
Oh,
go.
Lord, take him to jail. Okay, the next one, air fresheners. I'm a criminal, so let me get some context. So, by using an air freshener that hangs from your rearview mirror, it is illegal. In fact, anything that hangs from your rearview mirror is illegal. Anything that impairs your view of the windshield is illegal. Windshield obstruction laws.
Guilty.
I'm very guilty.
Definitely
Wow,
guilty.
Definitely.
My
Wow.
favorite scent is it called Black
Black
Ice?
ice, yes. But what's funny is I got the one hanging from the windshield, and I got the Febreze vent
Me
clip.
too.
Like, you just can't
Me
never
too.
have enough air freshener.
Correct.
Hey,
I agree with that.
I've seen somebody actually use black ice like as a cologne. I'm not
What
gonna
they
say
do?
who.
Rub it?
Wow.
What did they rub it on themselves?
Because you seen it on TV shows. I seen somebody do that in real life.
Hey,
I was
times
like,
be hard.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Times be
That's
hard.
low key brilliant. Though.
What you got on that black ice?
Hey, that air freshener company, they might need to take a hint. They might have another untapped market.
Correct. So the last one in the because it is getting cold outside, one thing that is illegal is leaving your car running.
All the
Yeah.
time.
So it says wintertime is coming, and it is here. So many of us start our car to let it warm up in the morning. However, if you let it run for more than 5 minutes, it is called idling your car, and it is a crime because it creates air pollution.
So I wouldn't say not guilty, but I did know this only because I work for a car rental company, and they always have like all these compliance laws where they can't leave cars running. And even like the shuttle buses, like if they're waiting on people, they can't let it idle for so long. So that I did know of.
I did
just
not
from
know
working in
that.
compliance.
I did not know that.
I'm guilty of this early on, like especially when we have been out of town, like in Chicago, and in the wintertime,
cold.
that cold,
Mhm,
you need to let that car start up
real.
and warm up.
Yeah.
I've done that plenty of times.
So you're a criminal.
I guess so.
Yes, we got a stage full of criminals up here
Stage
today.
full
Oh,
of
Lord.
criminals with a lawyer, but thank
But
God.
thank God it's a lawyer on the
Correct.
stage.
I am pleading the fifth today.
Uh-oh. That's awesome.
Well, that was fun. Well, if y'all need a lawyer, we know where you can find one
come
if you're
on.
guilty of any of these crimes.
And he gonna give us a discount. I'm just
You're
kidding.
not guilty of any crimes. Don't admit anything.
All right, that was fun.
That was.
So let's get into our main discussion today. But let's start by first introducing our guest. So today we have Brandon Jackson with us. Brandon is a lawyer and the founding attorney of Jackson Law P.C., which is a boutique litigation firm. It'll be opening here in St. Louis very soon. And it centers on communities with limited access to generational wealth. And he specializes in catastrophic personal injury, as well as he's a civil rights advocate for the most vulnerable inside the courtroom and out in the community. His civil litigation experience includes class action litigation and investigation of law enforcement misconduct. He's also worked as a United States federal public defender in East St. Louis, Illinois. He's a graduate of Morehouse College and also University of Illinois College of Law. And he has many awards to his name, but he also enjoys spending time with his fiancé and his dog Stokely. So, Brandon, we are so happy to have you
Yes.
today.
Thank you guys for having
Yep,
me. It's a
and-
pleasure to be here.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
and to thank you, we do have a little This Ain't Sunday Morning merch for you.
Yeah.
I love
You
it.
are part of the
T-shirt.
gang.
I
Yeah, so
love
welcome
it.
You are
to the
part of the
crew.
gang.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Looking
Yeah.
forward to being here.
Yeah.
Talking.
Everybody don't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm rocking this as soon as I leave.
Yes. And so Paige mentioned before that 1 in 3 people have a criminal work. 1 in 3 Americans have a criminal record. So we thought this topic would be very important because apparently some of us are criminals and we don't even know it. And so we just want to help the people out today by just asking some questions. Getting the real legal opinion because people that watch Law and Order or got a TikTok page think they can give legal advice, but we want to get it from the source. And so we have a few questions for you today. And so the first one, speaking of social media, besides catfishing, what are some other ways that people can incriminate themselves on social media or just online behaviors that can get people in trouble?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Pardon me. I'm sorry. Thank you for that question. I think it's really important that we talk about social media because it plays such a big part in what goes on in courtrooms every day. But before sort of jumping into that, if you would indulge me just for a moment, I think anytime we talk about crime or anytime we talk about law, we have to put it in context.
Yes.
Okay.
Right? And so because I think these issues will come up as we have a conversation today, I just sort of want to ground us in what I think the proper context to sort of have this conversation is,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
First, I think it's important that if we talk about crime and if we talk about the law, we talk about living in this age of so-called mass incarceration,
Yeah.
okay, right? And so what that means is there are approximately 2.2 million people in jail right now. There are probably 500,000 people in jail right now who are pre-conviction, meaning they are legally innocent, right? There are over probably over 1 million people who are under some sort of supervision, whether that be probation, ankle monitoring. And so I think it's important that we contextualize the conversation because we have never lived in a period of human history where this many people are in jail.
Right.
Okay? The United States of America has 5% of the world's population, but we have 25% of the world's prison population.
That's incredible.
That's really high.
Right? And so as we talk about crimes, one of the sort of major umbrella topics that I think we'll continue to come into is this idea that it's very easy to go to jail in our country. Right? So that's the first thing that I want to sort of ground our conversation in. The second thing that I think is important to ground our conversation is the idea that crime is a changing concept. And let me start by asking a question to each of you. What is crime?
When I do something bad that I ain't got no business doing that I know for a fact ain't right.
That's real.
Yeah.
Courtney, what do you think crime is?
I know it's an offense, something that you committed, done even if it's in a childhood stage or like a early stage. I've known I've done things that I've taken from stores,
Right.
And I didn't think it was a crime, but it is an offense.
Right.
So if any of you stole anything, or if you've done anything criminal, or I would say anything, I've done minor stuff, but I didn't think it was actually a crime.
Right.
So, or I don't really know per se, because I would say minor stuff, and then because I've gotten arrested for things that I didn't think was actually a crime. Like, I won't give an. I'll give
Lord,
you
Courtney.
I won't say anything too bad, but I'm not gonna say
Lord,
anything.
he about to put his Jackson State days out here again.
The
It's
story
not a
time
stu-
with
it-
Courtney.
Right.
It's not
right.
that. It's not that, but I'm just saying that I've gotten arrested for things that I
Right.
didn't really think was a crime. I got pulled over for being black.
Sure.
I don't think that's a crime.
Right.
But just like I said, we've done minor things. I've stolen candy from several places.
Yeah.
So,
That's
All
so
right.
legal.
Something like
Right,
that.
Courtney.
I know that's a crime, but they can't arrest you for that.
Right.
Well,
Can they?
What do you think a crime is?
I think a crime is doing something that is against what is written in like the law. So whether it's a local law, state, federal, something that is written that is a statute or a law, and you do something against that, like breaking it.
Yeah, I think all of you guys touched on important pieces of what crime is. But let's sort of take a step back. And I think crime is what lawmakers say that crime is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It serves certain interests of certain people in our society,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Interesting.
And it changes over time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let me give you an example. If Courtney and I go outside right now and we stand over a pair of dice and we roll that dice, that is considered a crime. Right?
Oh, wow.
We are playing craps. That's considered a crime. But if we go on Wall Street and speculate over the price of corn,
Yeah.
that is not considered crime.
Oh, I see. That's interesting, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That concept's interesting.
If I rob someone or murder someone, that is considered homicide. That is considered crime, right?
Yep.
But if I evict someone illegally and put them out in the cold and they die as a result, which happens,
Yeah.
that is not considered a crime,
Wow.
Which is crazy.
Wow.
right? And so as we have this conversation about what crime is, I just thought it was important to, one, talk about this being mass incarceration and also crime being a changing concept that serves the interests of certain communities at certain times.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like, because we're talking about social media. That wouldn't have needed to be a law 50 years ago
Right.
because
Right.
there was no social media as
Yeah.
it is today. So
Yeah.
that's a really good point.
Yeah, but to your point about things that happen on social media, what I see is, number one, I think the largest thing I see a lot of people incriminating themselves.
Yep.
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 They're posting content on Instagram and on Facebook. They're holding guns.
Yep.
They are flashing money. And I'm not sure if people know this, but FYI, law enforcement has social media, guys.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And do.
They use social media extensively. It is their number one investigative tool is to look at your social media to see who your friends are. And so people incriminate themselves every day on social media. But the second thing that I see that's really, really important is when you are moving around with a cell phone in your pocket, your every move is being tracked.
And people don't think about that.
And
They
people don't
don't.
think about that.
They do
And so
not.
I've had to sit in courtrooms with people who were accused of horrendous crimes, and they were trying to defend themselves against those crimes. But the prosecutors were able to show very clearly how throughout the day they were able to drive to certain parts of the city where
That is
crime was
wild.
committed.
Wow.
Right? And so every time you are moving about the city holding your cell phone, you are being surveilled, watched. And so not only should you not incriminate yourself, but also be mindful that wherever you go, someone is watching.
So that
That-
means that every time I go to Chick-fil-A, they know.
They know.
Every single time.
They know.
Dang.
And they
Every
see your
single-
debit card. They can track
Yeah.
your purchases. So they know.
Dang, the
They definitely
feds.
know.
They own you.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the cell phone though. Is there a way to turn that off, or is like just because you have a cell phone, it's just not by using your cell phone, that's just something that you're opting into?
So, yes, you can turn that feature off on some cell phones. It is questionable whether or not you can turn it off on all cell phones, right? And it is questionable whether or not you can believe that you're not being watched and monitored even when they say you aren't.
I think that's a little frightening. One,
That is.
and then two, what about like Alexa and these Google? What about that? Are they tracking us on that too? Because it's like if we can just tell Alexa to play a song, it's for sure. I know somebody is tracking
Is
that.
she listening to all our other
You know what I
conversations
mean?
too?
Like, what
She
is the
got
deal with
to.
that?
That's very interesting because there is a lawsuit right now, I believe against Facebook. There's a very well-known law firm who's filed a lawsuit against them because they were listening into that information when they were not supposed to be.
Yeah.
That is a civil lawsuit, though, so someone made a choice to not define that as crime,
Wow.
right? So they were listening, and so if I do it, right, if I listen in or if I use social media to harass someone, I can be indicted by the federal government or by the local government. But Facebook did it, right, and we haven't seen any footage of Mark Zuckerberg being dragged out of his office
That's right.
and taken in the chains because certain choices were made that was not a crime.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a little frightening.
That is.
They know our every move. They know when you make pizza. They know when you
Go to
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A?
It's like,
Everything. My goodness.
Yes, they know everything.
Lord.
all right. Also pertaining to the social media are Karens. It seems it seems like there's always a Karen on social media nowadays. What are our rights if someone tries to stop us in our path or stop us from getting out the car? Or even I would say at the gym, you might get some Karens at the gym too, and you won't you can't identify them until you actually know. 'Cause I had to, so I'll just ask that question. Can you explain?
Yeah. Karen's is just something that we are seeing more and more frequently, right? As people record their encounters, as people record their encounters with the public, we see that more and more frequently. What I can say, and this is, if I had sort of a top 5 legal advice to folks that I would give, it is that, number one, this is one of those things, that you are not obligated to talk to anyone,
That's good.
right?
That's real good.
And so, Courtney, ask me what my number one weapon against Karens are, or is. Ask me.
What is your number one weapon against Karens?
Silence.
He don't have to answer you.
That's right. That's power. Now, that's power. I like that.
Right? And so when we interact with Karens, when we interact with the police, we are not obligated to open our mouths. Sometimes when people ask us a question, we feel like we are obligated to respond to them, but you aren't. So if I encounter a Karen, number one, I would not engage with them.
Very good.
All right. Number two, I will record all interactions with them, right? Just so it's very clear about who's the aggressor. And on a recording, where only one party is talking,
Yep.
it's very clear who's tripping, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
There
Right,
you go.
right.
There you go.
Hello.
And I think it's just human nature, like especially like it could be a pride thing too, where we feel like we have to respond, we have to get the leg
Yeah.
up. But it sounds like from a legal perspective, like
We ain't gotta
your
do
best
nothing.
bet is to keep your mouth shut. And even from as a Christian perspective, like how are you glorifying God by trying to go off on this person or trying to get a leg up on them? Like I think that's a good opportunity to show humility. It's not saying that you have to not necessarily let them win, because if they do something that is illegal or they do something against you, now you have your footage and you handle it the appropriate way. You take them to court, you call the police, you do what you have to do the right way without you having to engage them or go off on them and do all that other crazy stuff.
I think also too, it shows wisdom and discernment. Because
Yeah.
if you're silent, that is the power of God right there. You don't have
Take
to.
the Holy
Okay.
Spirit and keep you quiet.
You don't have to get yourself in trouble. You can just be quiet, be silent, do exactly what God tells you, and it gives you more power. And people do respect that because one, if you sit up here and say you know your rights, then you'll get in an argument or dispute that you don't really need to get yourself into. So you get caught up in stuff, but it's more power in using wisdom and discernment. Basically, what just Brandon was just talking about.
Yep.
All right, so we recently recorded an episode about domestic violence, and we learned that stalking can be a part of domestic violence. What are things that may be considered stalking that people do and can get in trouble that they may not realize?
I think that's a really good question.
Thank you.
And when we think about crimes again, one of the things I think is important to think about is the idea that prosecutors can choose what they want to prosecute. It's called prosecutorial discretion. Okay.
That's a big word. Say that again.
Prosecutorial discretion. That means if something comes across my desk as a prosecutor, I can decide if I'm going to spend my time filing a lawsuit about that, right? And so we think about, as we think about how a person may get in trouble for domestic violence or stalking or things like that, we have to think about this person who's making the choice to charge someone, right? And so one of the things that we know, for example, is that law enforcement is frequently involved in domestic violence issues, but they are not frequently prosecuted for it. Right. And so one of the things, sort of, again, big picture, I'm not trying to get deep here, but as we think about, how we approach this idea of domestic violence or stalking, it's important to keep in mind that if a prosecutor sets his sights or her sights on you, that's the first thing that I think will make it incredibly hard for you to beat any charge, right?
Wow.
No matter what you do,
Yeah.
because this person has decided that in their head as a prosecutor, you did something wrong, right? So that's the biggest thing that a lot of people don't know. But sort of turning to what I've seen on social media, using social media can be stalking or harassing someone. I've seen, for example, one person who I represented, had a bad breakup with his girlfriend, and he used social media and sent her a bunch of inbox DMs, sort of threatening her, saying what he was going to do. He was not going to, hurt a fly.
Yeah.
He was upset.
Yeah.
He was heartbroken.
Feelings hurt.
His
Yeah.
feelings was hurt, right? And he was saying a bunch of stuff that he didn't
didn't
really mean.
Right.
The unfortunate point is that his girlfriend was in the Air Force. And so as he's doing this, he's calling her job, which is an Air Force base.
Right. Ooh, government, military.
Right?
Right.
And there's a prosecutor who's also in the Air Force.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
Right?
That's pretty bad.
And so that's why I'm bringing up these choices, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a person back there who's making the choice to charge these things. And that's sort of, I think, a piece of the conversation that we don't talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
That's deep.
That's good. So, speaking of relationships, everybody these days, like that seems like that's all people seem to talk about. Like if they're single, they're looking for that person. Paige.
Hello.
But I think we should talk about innocent flirting versus harassment, and where do you draw that line? Because even now, like some women might like a guy to, like, they touch the small of their back or something if they're walking by, or where's my hug. But what crosses the line from just like friendly flirting to harassment or even assault when it comes to flirting and dating and relationships?
I think that's a complex question.
Okay.
Because it depends on a number of different interactions that people can have with each other, right?
Okay.
What I can say is that we should not assume that we can say certain things to people. We should not assume that we can touch certain people, whether that be hugs or handshakes or kisses, right? You always have to ask for consent,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that one of the things that we have to unthink is we have to unthink this idea that just because I approach a certain person a certain way, that's how they want to be approached.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so for example, there used to be a culture in certain workplaces where guys could say things to their secretaries or paralegals and things like that, right? But now that's not appropriate. It's not seen as appropriate. And so I think as long as you are asking for consent, as long as you are being very clear with that person about what your boundaries are, then you shouldn't get in any trouble. But don't assume that you know what a person's boundaries are.
Oh, that's really good right there. 'Cause I think these days, like, people feel entitled to other people. So like I'm entitled to your body. Like, so if I ask you for a hug, you owe me a hug now.
Absolutely not.
Right.
I don't know where your hands been at, sir.
And so, like,
That's
even
right.
in church, like, it's a place where people might just want to be friendly, but if I don't want you to hug me, I should not have to hug
Correct.
you. And it's like really understanding those boundaries. And so, like, even with our children, and so we're not talking about like flirting at this point, but just having consent and knowing boundaries, like. Because we go to a big church, people always want to hug our children. But I've told them that if you don't feel comfortable hugging somebody, you do not have to hug that person.
That's right.
And if I'm standing there with them and they are denying somebody a hug, I'm like, sorry,
Right.
she
They
not-
said no.
they said no, so I'm not
Right.
going to make her hug anybody. And I think that's important for people to understand, is like, we're not entitled to other people's bodies. We're not entitled to other people. We're not entitled to other people's anything. And everybody has the right to set their own boundaries. And I think once we understand that, it'll be easier to make sure we're not crossing that line.
And I think one thing that I probably appreciate most about this generation is as we respect boundaries. Because, like, back in the day, grandma and them used to force
You
you
have to
do something
let
that
the
you.
old ladies kiss you on the cheek.
Correct. Don't do that. I didn't want to kiss Bertha. Like, I didn't want to hug her, right? But I think, like you said, now is that we are respecting boundaries, and if I don't feel comfortable doing that, then I'm not going to do it. Period.
That's real.
Yeah, I mean, I was taught like boundaries. I think that goes a long way, because basically what y'all was just saying, we were all taught boundaries, but I think we were taught even for the old school, because like you said, if you didn't want somebody at church, especially back in that day,
Right.
kissing you, you didn't really have to take a kiss from that person. But we teach our kids boundaries because, for instance, children don't know boundaries. They'll be in each other's faces,
Oh my goodness.
like
yeah.
completely, like in their face, spitting whatever
They
it
the
is.
worst.
It's
Right.
like, look, you need to give that person some space.
Right.
So that's
50
a
feet.
boundary.
Yeah.
You cannot just be in their face like that. So it still goes on, but we have to be respectful. But just like you were saying, even if we come here, 'cause especially here, people do want to hug and they want to. All this, the first thing when you come walk into the door, they'll say hi. But the person that you know, they'll automatically come dead to your face, in your boundary, in your space. It's like, I don't have to give you a five, I don't have to give you a kiss, but the thing is, we were taught to just smile and just be appropriate and be respectful. But you don't want nobody crossing that line, then you have to show proof that you don't want them crossing that line.
Right.
And
For sure.
I think if you have a church friend or someone you've known or you've seen over the course of the years, and you always greet that person a certain way, there's nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that.
that's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's a beautiful
You know,
thing.
Sister Jackson, and you give Sister Jackson a hug, and you've been
Sister
giving
Jackson.
Sister Jackson because my mama is
That's
Sister
just
Jackson.
right.
Sister
Yeah.
Jackson. I
So-
love
Miss
it.
Beyonce soon to be Sister
Yes,
Jackson.
Sister Jackson.
And so there's nothing wrong if you've been greeting Sister Jackson like that for
Yeah.
10 years.
That's right.
The problem is when you try to approach Sister Smith like you approach Sister Jackson.
That's
It
right.
don't work the same.
That's right.
And
Right.
you don't have the same history with Sister Smith,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So
Very
that's the
good.
problem.
Yep.
Very good. So we already talked about 5. I'll ask, when do you need a restraining order?
I think anytime you are concerned for your safety,
Okay.
you need a restraining order. There's something called an ex parte restraining order that's very easy to get, which means if you file for a restraining order within a couple days, you can be seen by a judge, and they will generally grant you what's called a temporary restraining order,
Okay.
which is in place for a temporary amount of time. If you then need a more sort of long-term restraining order, you can apply for that. But there's sort of a more involved process for that. But anytime you feel threatened or you don't feel safe, it's a tool at your disposal.
Can
So
you?
how? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna ask if you can go into a little bit more detail about what a restraining order actually does. Like, and I know they can be different, but
Yeah.
generally speaking.
So a restraining order is a official announcement from a court that a person has to stay a certain feet away from you,
Okay.
right? And so whenever a court issues an order, what that essentially means is that if the person to whom that order was addressed does not follow that order, then the order allows law enforcement to essentially come get that person
Okay.
because they are in violation of an order,
Okay.
right? If there was no order in place, then they were not in violation of anything. So the order allows law enforcement to take action once it's violated.
So I do got a minor story to that because I
Oh
mean
my gosh.
He always got to.
Oh Lord.
Let's hear
Story
it.
time with
Let's hear
Courtney.
it.
this happened a long time ago, way before me and my wife got married.
Thank you
When
for
I was in-
clarifying. that,
Please.
too.
You
It
know,
is
I had-
not
I have to
Tanisha.
clarify that. I had when I filed a restraining order when I was in college against my ex-girlfriend. When I was in Mississippi, 'cause I went to Jackson State, the police laughed at me because like I wasn't this big, but I was like still over 200 pounds, and I think back then they were supposed to stay. She was supposed to stay like I think 1,000 to like 1,500 feet away from me at a particular time, but we stayed in the same facility, so the same apartment area, and then she did not follow that restraining order. And so when the police came to my house, he opened the door. He was like, "Man, you kind of big." I was like, "Look, I'm just trying to do what's right. So
Right.
I'm not trying to go to jail
Right.
Right.
because they'll assume because like
Right.
at the law back then, I know is if we argued in public, they would come get me because it happened
could.
one time.
Yeah.
So I was a little frightened. So I was like, I'm gonna just do that, and then just sit in my apartment so I can do what's right because I filed because we were arguing in public, and then she was trying to say that I was a part of this domestic violence situation. So it went around campus, and I didn't do anything to her. So it looked like I did something because she was kind of unstable, and then she used to kind of do stuff to herself, and it make it seem like I did it to her. So it took me a while to get that thing, and I had to actually talk to several people so I can just stay away from her. But when they told me to do that, because my parents came down, and I had to file a restraining order to stay away from her, so I can show proof that I'm not doing anything to her. But that was a little frightening at that time, but that's a little minor story for y'all.
So is it hard to get a restraining order?
It is not hard to get a temporary restraining order.
Okay.
As you know, for a temporary restraining order, the judge will essentially grant that to you just because you apply for it.
Okay.
Right? The idea is that we want to make sure you're safe as soon as possible if
Okay.
you believe that your life is threatened for some reason. However, that is only temporary. I think it may be only 14 days, right? And so at the expiration of that 14 days, if you want a more long-standing restraining order, you have to go in front of the judge and give the judge more extensive evidence, sort of explaining why you want that protective order.
Okay. And so if someone is in need of a restraining order, do they go to the police or do they have to go to the court? Like what's the process to do that?
So if you need a restraining order, my advice will be based on whatever county you're in. So if you're in St. Louis County, it would be called the court in St. Louis County. If you're in St. Louis City, it would be called the court in St. Louis City, etc. And all of these courts have a clerk of the court who will answer questions for you, right?
Okay.
This is something that they hear and they see every week.
Okay.
Okay.
So don't be afraid to call the court to say, hey, I'm interested in getting a temporary restraining order. Can you direct me to the forms that I need to fill out in order to get that accomplished?
Okay. Great. Thank you.
So back in August, an incident happened at Whole Foods in Brentwood where a young black female was verbally and physically assaulted by a white age male. Some defended him by saying that she shouldn't have filmed him. Is it illegal to film people?
So, I haven't seen the video that you're talking about, but generally speaking, you don't have a presumption to privacy when you're in the public. Okay? So if I walk out of the sanctuary right now and I go out into the parking lot, right, I'm in the public.
Okay.
You don't have a presumption of privacy when you're in the public. Okay?
Makes sense. Yeah.
It makes sense,
Yeah.
right? You have a presumption of privacy when you're in your home,
Yeah.
which is why someone can be arrested for looking in your window,
Yeah.
Okay.
peeping toms,
Yeah.
right?
That makes sense.
And so I'm not sure of the exact video you're talking about, but if she was outside, then there's no presumption of privacy in the public or in any place where the public is. That includes, I would argue, Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have a
Interesting.
question then to take it one step further. So yes, you can record, but can someone record you and put it on social media? Is that legal?
So again, if you don't have a presumption of privacy,
Okay.
right? If I'm outside at Forest Park, and this is a public space,
Yes.
and someone is testing their camera and they're shooting footage, and I'm running and I fall in the background, and I don't want them to post that on YouTube, I don't really have any
Okay.
legal argument to prevent that,
Good
Yeah.
to know.
right? But if I'm in a space that's private,
Right.
then I have probably more footing to stand on.
Yeah.
Okay. That is good to know.
Good to know. Don't record me.
Good luck with that.
Right.
Because if you fall and I'm looking to my phone as
Oh
fast as I
Lord.
can,
Oh Lord. See.
I love you, Paige.
I won't record you. I'll help you up.
Thank you so
After-
very much.
after
I
you
hope
have.
you too.
After he, thank you. I appreciate it. Cause Tanisha turning
You
on
don't need
me,
my help. They got you.
and a good lawyer.
You got a good lawyer. There you go. Okay, so even talking about recording, and I think we have our answer to that too. But what about navigating interactions with police? And so, should we film them? Do we have the right to film our interaction with them? And then, after that, what's the difference between being detained and being arrested?
So these are complicated questions, y'all. I'm not trying to get deep.
That's okay.
I'll get
Right.
deep. We
I'm
need all
not-
the tea.
But I think it's important that we don't just rush past certain things,
Okay.
Mhm.
right? And so let's start by talking about interactions with the cops.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. One, silence is your friend.
Okay.
Okay. You are not obligated to talk to the police.
Okay.
I know we live in a society that makes you feel like if the police ask you a question,
Yeah.
you have to answer,
Yeah.
but you don't.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
You don't. You simply don't.
So.
They may tell you that you have to answer, but you don't.
Okay.
Okay? So that's one thing to keep in mind. Also, and I think we have to say this, people's rights are violated every single day in this country.
I believe
And nothing
that.
happens as a result of it.
Yeah.
Right? So I think we can ask ourselves whether or not something is illegal, but that's not the only question. Because illegal things still happen
Every
every
day.
single day,
Yeah.
and nothing happens to those people when they commit those crimes.
That's true.
Right? And so if I were thinking about interacting with the police, my personal position on that is one, I'm saying as little as possible.
Okay. Got it.
Okay? My fiance will tell you we were going to dinner, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, allegedly,
Allegedly.
Yeah.
I was speeding on Highway 40.
I know you wasn't. You
Right.
wasn't speeding.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Right?
Allegedly.
They was
That's
out
the
to
word.
get me.
Allegedly.
They was out to get me, I think, right? And so the cop pulls me over, and he asked me where I'm going.
Yeah.
And I just look at him.
'Cause that ain't none of his business.
It's
Correct.
None of his, that has nothing to do
Yeah.
with why he pulled me over.
Yeah.
But I know from my experience that one of the things that they do is they try to engage you in conversation while they look for reasons to arrest you.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Right? And so, if I were smoking marijuana, which I wasn't, and I started talking, he could have said, I smelt it on his breath,
Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
right?
Wow.
And so as I'm talking, it gives him more of an opportunity. The longer I talk, the more time he has to look around in my car, right? And so not talking really is your friend
Yeah.
Yeah.
when you interact with the police.
Yeah.
But also, and I would not be I think, doing my job if I didn't say this, police, because of the laws in this country, police unfortunately have a license to kill.
Yeah.
And so when you interact with them, unfortunately, you have to interact with them knowing that they could do something to you, and it would be incredibly hard legally to hold them accountable.
Oh, we've seen that. We
Yeah.
have seen that time and time
Right.
Oh, yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Eric Garner in New York was killed by a police officer. The police officer was not indicted, but you know who was indicted? The guy who recorded the police officer, right?
That's
So
crazy.
he was sent to jail,
That's crazy.
right? And so whether or not you have rights, I think is a separate question of whether or not you should be trying to argue with this person who in some respects may have their life or your life in their
In
hands.
their hands. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Sorry, y'all. I didn't mean to.
Like, you
bring
took-
that
No,
you
no,
took
no.
it.
You
You
took
took
it. It's cool.
Yeah, we definitely need to
We
hear that.
need it. Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Oh, and can we just, I just want to follow up too on the second part of the question too. So, what's the difference between being detained and being arrested too? Because I know, like, so if they were to take you into custody, have you been officially arrested? Is there a difference? And so once that happens, we know like that you definitely need a lawyer at that point.
Yeah, so if you're detained legally, that means that the cops are investigating whether or not you committed a crime.
Okay.
They're investigating. When you're arrested, that means that there is quote unquote probable cause.
Okay.
Which means a very minimal amount of evidence to actually believe that you committed this crime. And that's when they take you in custody.
Okay.
Even for like misdemeanors, like for like, tickets and stuff like that.
Yeah, so they could, my understanding is they can arrest you for tickets, but obviously they often don't.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Marijuana is legal now. However, are there still restrictions that users should be aware of? For example, driving under the influence or being under the influence at work.
So this is, I'm so glad you guys are talking about this. I think this is a really important topic because we all see the signs on the side of the highway,
Yep.
the dispensaries and all of that. It's
Yeah.
big business now, right?
Every other billboard. is
Every
a
other
dispensary.
billboard,
It's
right?
crazy.
And so I think it's really important for us to have conversations about this and not shy away from it. What folks should know is that marijuana is still illegal at the federal level.
Oh wow.
Oh.
At the federal level.
Okay.
So it is still a federal crime to use or possess marijuana.
Oh, I didn't know
Wow.
that.
So how does that work? So if it's legal in the state of Missouri, and people, because we got a shop right up here, and
Right.
every day the drive-through is full.
Right.
So how does that work? Is it illegal for them to do it, or?
So so the short answer, and I'm trying to be as technical as I can.
Uh-huh.
I'm not trying to get deep here, but those people next door who are going to buy marijuana, they are committing federal crimes every day in public sight. And the federal United States attorney, whose office is downtown, knows about it, knows that it's happening, but they've decided that they are not going to prosecute it.
Okay.
Wow.
However, right, I've seen and represented people who were under federal supervision. That means, for example, a person who was convicted of a federal crime 10 years ago, they went to federal prison, and now they're on federal quote-unquote papers,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so if the government wants to violate them, or if the government thinks that they may have some information and they're using marijuana, then they will use that person's marijuana use as reason or cause for a violation.
Oh, my
Good
So
to
they
know.
use it when it benefits them,
Wow.
Okay.
right? But when it doesn't benefit them, they essentially turn a blind eye to it, which brings us back to the question of what is crime?
Because now that it's making people money and they're getting taxes
Right,
off of it, it's
right.
not as
What's
big
crime,
a deal.
right?
Uh-huh.
But they got receipts. They got a paper trail.
They got a paper trail. And not only that, right? But think about this, Courtney. If I walk out of here and I take tobacco and roll it in a piece of paper and go smoke it, that's totally legal.
Wow.
It's legal under the federal government, but if I put marijuana in it, the
It's
federal
illegal.
government says
Yeah.
that it's not legal, right? And so
That's
we have
crazy.
to ask those questions about why one plant is legal and why one is not legal, and why the federal government is not busting down this operation next
Yeah.
door to the church.
Wow.
Wow.
We know why. Yeah. So I think this, just for the sake of time, this will probably be our last question.
Okay.
But I think it's an important one. So protesting. So here in St. Louis, years ago, when Mike Brown was murdered by a Ferguson police officer, protesting was a huge thing. And even now, with Israel and Palestine, there are protests going on all over the country, really all over the world. And so with that, we know that because of the Constitution, we have the right to protest. But how do we navigate that legally? And then how do we know when our right to protest is being infringed on?
Yeah, that's a profound question. You know, I'll start by saying rest in peace to Mike Brown.
Yeah.
Next year makes 10 years since we lost Mike Brown.
Yeah.
So
That's
much has
crazy.
happened in our community. So much has happened probably in all of our lives since that's happened. And so, unfortunately, we've had a while to sort of think about that. What I can say is anytime you are deciding to protest, you have to understand that there are dangers inherent in that, right? One of the things that you should be aware of is, in addition to being tracked by your phone, there are a number of cameras everywhere.
Wow.
Right, if you walk down any street, there are cameras on people's garages, there are cameras on people's doors, there are cameras on all of these buildings. And so as you are protesting, the federal government, they're using drones, law enforcement is using drones. They are watching who's doing this activity, right? Also, one of the things that we've seen here in St. Louis, for example, we've seen certain tactics used by police where they sort of corral certain groups of people in a very dangerous way, where they sort of encircle them and they arrest them. These things sort of lead me to these conclusions. If you go protest, understand that there's inherent danger in that and you might be arrested. Okay? You have a right to film the police even when they tell you that you don't.
Okay.
However, you should not impede their ability to do their job.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay? So if you can safely stand to the side and record, technically you're not doing anything wrong, right? But may you still get on their bad side by doing that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? So just be careful, try to record yourself or have someone record you, and stick in groups, right? Stick in groups with other people.
That's
Okay.
interesting.
So, Brandon, we are so grateful that you were here today just to tell us, because I know I learned a lot, and I hope you all learned a lot too.
Yep.
And so if you find yourself in a position where you might need a lawyer, I think it might be good for us to figure out, well, how do we even choose a lawyer? Like, so we've ended up on the other side of the law. Where do we find a lawyer? We hear all these advertisements on the radio page. You said 411 Pain.
411 Pain.
Yeah. And they always have that disclaimer that, an advertisement is not, should not be your sole information that you use to get
Yeah.
a lawyer. So what's the first step for people to find a lawyer?
I think the first step is to talk to people who you trust and people whose opinions you trust,
Okay.
right? Just to hear from those people. But also use the internet to your advantage. There's a tremendous amount of information online. You can find out if an attorney has ever been disciplined. You can find out if an attorney has ever been to trial, if they've taken cases similar to the one that you're asking them to take. You can look at Google reviews. But here's the thing that you also can do that a lot of people don't do. you can talk to multiple attorneys.
Yeah, shop around.
You can shop around,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And so when you go and talk to attorneys, if they think you have a case that they want, they'll call you,
Okay.
they'll hassle you, they'll send you emails every day,
wow.
right? And try to pressure you, but you have time to go talk to multiple people. And don't choose someone just because you like the jingle on their commercial. You know, choose someone who you can look at in the eyes, someone who you feel like you can talk to, and most importantly, someone who sees the human side of you.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who will take your money and not do a good job.
So basically, he's saying we can call him.
There you go.
Absolutely. You
We can call
me.
him.
Jackson Law P.C.
Come
There
on
you go.
now.
So, yes, yes.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yes,
we
thank
appreciate
you.
you sharing your knowledge. We hope this won't be the last time we hear from you, but we appreciate.
Yes,
having
we
you on
do.
Today.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Precious Lord, we thank you for our special guest. We thank you for Brandon Jackson. We ask you continue to bless Westside, continue to bless his law firm, and watch over the people, dear Lord. We thank you for this episode. We thank you for how you continue to bless us at Westside. We thank you for continuing to give us wisdom, knowledge, and better understanding of your word, dear Lord. Watch over us, keep us safe. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
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 And that's a wrap
That's a wrap.
of This Ain't Sunday Morning, yo. If you enjoyed this episode and if you would like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rate and a review. For our YouTube listeners, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. To stay up to date with This Ain't Sunday Morning and to get all the behind the scenes content, you can follow us on Instagram at WS.YAM, on Facebook at Westside Young-Adults, and on TikTok at WSYAM.STL. You can also send your thoughts or questions directly to us to our email, youngadults@westsidembc.org. Also, if you send us a screenshot of your like, subscription, or follow, you will be entered into a raffle to win some This Ain't Sunday Morning merch. Thanks for watching.